Welcome to NEWSDAY, your number one resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. This time recorded at the Augmented World Expo. More on that in just a moment. But this week is actually really wild. Pimax just revealed probably one of the craziest VR headsets I've seen yet, but I'm really skeptical, and for good reason. Valve loses its brain-computer interface deal, straight up Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 may be coming soon to VR, and the long-awaited Apple XR device may be revealed within a week, likely shaking up the entire industry if it does. All that and so much more. This is a super exciting and jam-packed episode, so let's just get right into the news. Today, we're going to start off with the least exciting of all the news. There's actually a lot of stuff going on with Meta right now. First off, Meta was recently sued by a smaller company named Immersion Corporation for allegedly infringing on not one, not two, but 6 patents regarding technology present on the Quest 2. Most of these patents are related to the haptic technology within the Quest controllers, and some of the patent language is a little sus. Immersion Corp claiming that basic haptic feedback enhancing interactivity is their patent, but for a lot of sites, I guess this does make a pretty good headline saying that Meta stole this technology. But lawsuits like these are honestly pretty common within the tech industry. However, on the more visually stimulating spectrum of meta news, Reality Labs and Kent State recently demonstrated a really interesting breakthrough in VR display technology, and it has to do something with the VAC or Vergence Accommodation Conflict. To give some background, you may not notice this now, but when you're looking into any VR headset, your immersion will inherently be limited due to a simple factor. In physical reality, light comes from all sorts of distances. The sun through the atmosphere, the screen in front of your face, the lights over your head, and built into your eyes is something called an accommodation reflex. This reflex is what biologically and naturally determines depth. And there's a big problem with modern VR that can lead to all sorts of problems. Eye strain, a lack of realism and immersion, blurriness in nearby images. And it's because in a VR headset, all light comes from a single source, the displays, which are usually only a couple of inches away from your eyes, obviously completely throwing off your accommodation reflex. So the solution Meta has proposed actually contradicts a lot of current trends in VR. Instead of going smaller with lens and headset design, they instead went larger, opting for a bigger lens design with something called a dynamic focus liquid crystal lens. By changing the voltages of the liquid crystal element, the focal plane, or to put basically the light focus distance, is adjusted, essentially solving this problem and giving light certain depth, which is amazing. Not quite ready to be stuffed into a headset, but still really exciting. And there are still a lot of hurdles before these liquid crystal displays can be practical, like size, image clarity, mass production constraints, but it does seem like one of the cheapest ways to solve the Vergence accommodation conflict, bringing far more realistic VR to far more people in a cheaper way than holographic displays which do something similar. And PC VR may be coming back bigger than ever and very soon to way more people. I've been a big believer in cloud computing for VR applications for a long time. It solves so many of the problems with the VR industry over the past few years. With the explosion of less powerful standalone VR headsets, a lot of developers have shifted to making smaller scale mobile games for the Quest platform, rather than the big blockbuster titles that we really want out of VR. I mean, compare 2019's game releases when PC VR was the main focus of developers. Some of the best looking and playing VR games ever released back then, and since we've kind of stagnated, the entire industry has just shifted to standalone. And not saying these games and applications are bad, but they're far closer to mobile software. And that's where cloud computing comes in. And recently, it's popped up that Meta is working on something called Avalanche, a cloud-based air link allowing for PC VR games to be streamed. One user claiming that they played Asgard's Wrath, an Oculus PC VR exclusive, over a Wi-Fi connection, and no PC. But better proof that Meta is actually working on this is other cloud services being blocked from the Oculus store. Think about it this way. Your is a fitness tracker app that was broken and blocked by Facebook. Months later, Facebook released their own fitness tracker app for Quest. Virtual Desktop, an app built to allow wireless Wi-Fi streaming from a PC, blocked and broken months before Oculus released AirLink, something that does the exact same thing. And currently, Pluto Sphere is essentially blocked from the Oculus store, sideload only. And guess what? Plutosphere is a cloud-based PC VR streaming service. Meta just doesn't like rivals to their own solutions. But regardless, cloud VR streaming is on its way, and already here in some ways. Of course, a lot of things will have to be improved, like latency, general public internet connections, video stream compression, but apps like Plutosphere already do a pretty good job. So I'm excited to see eventually a complete revitalization of PC quality titles being developed due to this. But now on to the Pimax news. This company is kind of doing some weird stuff, and I'm honestly really split on how I feel about it. On one side, Pimax has been announcing the craziest VR hardware that I could possibly dream of using. On the other side, Pimax has a very questionable reputation, taking years to deliver on their original flagship headset, the AKX. Their announcements lately have been really cheesy and cringeworthy and kind of over the top and stretching marketing numbers, and they're promising so much that it's almost hard to believe. But let me just get into the details in context. Earlier this year, Pimax announced they would be releasing the actually insane Pimax 12K Reality QLED, featuring some of the craziest feature sets I've ever seen in a VR headset. The company obviously targeting the hardest core of hardcore enthusiasts. Let me just rattle off some of these specs. A resolution of 5760 by 3240 per eye, 200 Hz refresh rate, 240 degree field of view, eye tracking, face tracking, full body tracking, interchangeable faceplates for inside out or base station tracking or mixed reality, XR2 processor for standalone VR games with PC VR compatibility, and a 60 GHz WiGig wireless PC VR module, all for $2,400, and that wasn't even all of it. And I'll talk about that more in a second, but just yesterday, Pimax announced yet another VR headset with equally insane specifications, the Pimax Crystal, with yet another equally pat myself on the back kind of cringe-worthy press release. And this new headset is just as crazy as the unreleased 12K, but for a slightly different audience, called the Crystal because its optics are apparently crystal clear, offering an industry-leading pixel per degree measurement of 42 ppd. And to give some reference, the Index only has a ppd of 14, so this is a massive leap to say the least. The Crystal is also going to have a lot of the same features as the 12K QLED. Swappable faceplates, eye tracking, a standalone XR2 processor, as well as a PC VR wired and wireless capability, yet with a lowered resolution of 2880 by 2880 per eye and a maximum refresh rate of 160 Hz, as well as a limited field of view of 110 to 125 degrees depending on the lenses that you choose. And this is where the Crystal gets funky. This would be the first VR headset ever to have swappable lenses depending on what you prioritize, clarity or field of view. And even more important, the lenses are glass aspheric lenses rather than the typical Fresnel lenses that we're used to. And those are the same style that Vario use in their cutting edge and super clear Aero and XR3. It's kind of part of how they do it. The Crystal is set to launch in Q3 of this year for $1,899. Still very expensive and a hard sell for even the most dedicated of VR enthusiasts. And like I said, I'm really stumped. If the Crystal and 12K QLED are real and deliver on everything that they promise here, these will actually be the best VR headsets available, like hands down. Doesn't matter if you're talking consumer, prosumer, enterprise, hands down on paper, these would be the best. But with Pimax's past and these really weird presentations and the insane specifications, it's kind of hard for me to fully believe that this is actually going to happen without seeing it in person for myself. And to make it worse, Pimax promised a public demo at CES earlier this year for the 12K, and they straight up no-showed because they were waiting on parts or something. And they're also not going to be at AWE this week, kind of, the place where you show these things off. So, look, I actually really like Pimax headsets. I enjoyed the 5K Super enough that I nearly swapped out my Index for it. And I'm about to make a video on the current flagship AKX, which is another good headset. But the claims about the newest devices are crazy enough that I gotta see it for myself before hyping it up. But I will also say, if Pimax does pull this off exactly as they say they will, Pimax will cement itself as the best headset available. But we'll have to see. And I'm gonna keep trying my absolute hardest to get that 12K and Crystal demo just to show everybody, including myself, if this thing's actually real. Believe me, I'm trying. But now it's time for a meme break! And now, back to the news. So, we're about to head into leak territory, so definitely don't get too hyped. But multiple sources, including PSVR Without Parole, have recently leaked Sony's next mini press release, the State of Play Rundown. And on that list were some of Sony's supposed launch titles for the upcoming PSVR 2, set to release in the first quarter of 2023. And well, one of those titles was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 plus PSVR 2 support, which, if true, would be pretty insane. I can just imagine 360 no-scoping with an intervention, but in VR. However, this specific image leak seems to be mostly confirmed as fake and doctored. But that didn't stop other news sources from claiming that they know that some sort of VR component of Modern Warfare 2 is coming to the PSVR 2 exclusively, either at the launch of the headset or at a later date. Doesn't matter which way you look at it, I'm definitely hoping for it, but at the very least, we are getting a bunch of new PSVR announcements at this State of Play on the 2nd of June. So cross your fingers that they're good titles. And a little more credence to the leaks that Infinity Ward are making Modern Warfare 2 for VR, or some part of Modern Warfare 2 for VR, is that they've actually had VR support for a previous Call of Duty game. Infinite Warfare did have a VR component, but it was a little closer to an interactive tech demo than a full game. So the studio has certainly dipped its toes into VR development at the very least. And now onto the weird hype train that is WWDC. It seems like literally every single Apple event, somebody goes wild claiming this is the one where Apple announces its AR/VR device. And every single time they've obviously been wrong. But this upcoming WWDC taking place in only a few days could potentially be a little different. Let's start from the top. For nearly 5 years now, we've known Apple has been developing something called Reality OS. Insider reports claiming this is the operating system built specifically for some sort of XR device. And this has been further confirmed by code found in Apple's repository, referencing Reality OS many times. But it gets even deeper. A shell company Apple uses to trademark macOS updates, named Yosemite Research LLC, and another shell company, Reality O Systems LLC, are registered to the same address. And Reality O Systems has a trademark filing for something called Reality OS. And that trademark expires only 2 days after this upcoming WWDC. It's also been reported that Apple's AR/VR device was recently shown within the past month or so to Apple's board of directors as well, with supply chains secretly amping up with occasional specification leaks. Basically, if there was a time to possibly maybe expect a real announcement for an Apple headset, this WWDC is likely it, or at least for some part of it. And I don't think I've really said that before. But I've also watched people get hyped for the past 3 years to be disappointed, so we very likely could see nothing at all. Either way, I'll be watching because regardless of your opinion on Apple, their entrance into the XR industry will make some very big waves. And there are also some far less credible leaks like these air clips, a supposed control mechanism for this XR device that allow for the most tactile hand tracking possible, capable of pressure sensitivity, positional and splay tracking, slight haptics, but it's a little more out there. Still interesting though. But now it's time for question of the week from Tabular Joker. Where do you see Meta in the next 10 years? Do you see them falling off and becoming a thing of the past due to their lack of funding, or do you see them sticking around for the foreseeable future? Honestly, I see Meta sticking around for a long time in the XR industry. At this point, they're so far down the metaverse rabbit hole that they'd probably just as likely ditch Facebook before they ditch their XR endeavors. Where I honestly see them is being one of the largest Western metaverse companies competing directly against the ever-growing yet ideologically completely different Chinese state metaverse companies. And I'd actually like to dive way deeper into this into a full video because this situation has been ramping up for the past few years and it's getting hot. But that's it for question of the week. Leave yours down below and I may just answer yours next. Like I said, I'm at AWE right now, an XR industry conference attending with Qualcomm, so I'll definitely be making some awesome content directly from the event soon, so stay posted. I just want to say thank you to all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas, for making all of this possible. I couldn't do any of this without you. Definitely join up in my Discord server, there's lots of fun stuff there, and I'll be updating you guys all week on what's going on here at AWE. But don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.